Hey everyone, it's BlueTraX Dak. I almost forgot to say my name. But we're back here with the follow-up, the answers portion of my Q&A video that I'm doing. This is gonna be very impromptu. I haven't written out any of these answers, but I literally have the questions all in front of me. So I'm just gonna read out who asked the question and just give you my honest answer on each one. So yeah, I'm really excited about this. I actually got a decent amount of questions from you guys. So I'm excited to get through. Some of these are pretty interesting. I can't wait to get into it. So uh, let's cut the crap and get into actually answering these questions. All right. So question one, awesome Thomas fan, and it says, how many seasons do you plan on making? And well, that's a good question. I think the best answer to this one is uh, as many as it takes to tell the stories that I want to tell. So I will say, currently in draft, I have six planned. Like they're not written, but I know the plot line. I will say though that that's not right, like even conclusive. So the way it's kind of, I have a lot of storylines that are more full length. So what I'm trying to decide to do is, do I make each volume like start including multi-part stories? Like, cause Lady in the Beginning was a full length, but I didn't count it as an episode, or it didn't go into the episode count for volume 3. But I'm thinking I might start doing that, because if that's the case, then it could be anywhere from 6 to 10 volumes. But I don't. I'm still debating about that. So yeah, just as many as I want. I don't want to commit hardcore, but if I do the entire line that I've thought up, then it could go on for a few years, which is good. But we'll see. We'll see. So hopefully that answers it. That's a big non-answer, but more than four, probably more than five. So, all right, thank you for that question, though. Awesome Thomas fan. That's really exciting. So, let's move to the next one. Next question is Trainboy53 Productions. There are actually two questions here, which is great. I did say you could ask more than one question because I will answer all of them. So, Trainboy53 says, first question: if you were the boss of Mattel Creations, what changes would you make for the Thomas and Friends series? And then number two, he asked, chocolate or candy? So number two, you can answer right away. Chocolate, 100%. 86% dark. So back to question one, though. This one's a little bit more complicated, and I don't know. This one's tough. So you kind of have to understand the business model for Thomas. And this is going to get way in depth, but hey, who cares? I'll go into it. Even since the beginning of the show, like the inception, the profitability of the merchandise after they moved from books to the TV show is based entirely on merchandise sales. And that's fine, because pretty much every other franchise does the same thing. Like Star Wars, any Marvel movies, they all have toys in the store. And that's where they make the money. Like sometimes they'll make money off the movies for sure, but what keeps things going usually is merchandising, and that's the way Thomas has always been since the end of the books, and that's fine. That's cool. So I understand like why they keep introducing characters and stuff to keep things fresh. I don't think that model really needs to change. I think it's just the way that Mattel has handled it. I don't think the company is in a good position in general right now. So what they're doing is they're taking all the risk out of their lines, which is kind of ruining it for them now because, you keep cutting costs. People see that you're cheaping out and they don't want to buy your merch anymore. And between that and also just the quality of the show's animation has gotten so much worse in the last year and a half. I don't blame that on Jamfield at all. I mean, I think ARC has been the best studio for animation quality overall. But I understand things happen and whatnot. But it's just it's visibly worse. And so that combined with the way they keep canceling lines, like now, like we used to have so many Wooden Railway, Take Along, Tomy, like they were all very well fleshed out, and they just keep shrinking now. And I think eventually they're gonna just collapse the diecast line into Trackmaster, or the other way around. I don't know. So I don't like the path that it's going. But as far as changes, because I'm split, I think on one hand it would be better probably to give the show a hiatus, like maybe not a long time, but maybe like 5 years. I mean, if you think about it, the first three series were all spaced out by like anywhere from 2 to 4 years. So it would be okay if it's not as prolific as it's been. But I think they just really need to refocus on what they want to do up there. I mean, if I was the boss, I would definitely close the canon where it's at. I think the show is definitely spinning its wheels, and they don't know what to do now. And they're throwing everything they can into the wall and hoping it sticks, and it's just not right. They had a working formula with Andrew Brenner, and then they did Big World, which I'm not saying all that was bad, but it's been very poorly executed, I think. So what I would do is, I guess I would stop it, give them like at least 2 years off, maybe longer, 2 to 5 years, and then I'd probably do like I think the show's run long enough that a hard reboot would be in order, because they kind of did that. They could have done that with The Adventure Begins, but instead it became more of like a tributary thing. I love that thing; it was a masterpiece. But the show's far along enough now that I think they could go back and just restart from like the Railway series stories and bring them to life in a fresh way. I think that's what needs to happen, because what they're trying to do is take 30 plus years of canon that's been, guided by different teams over the years. Like it started with the Reverend, then it was Brit, and then it just changed hands between a bunch of writers, and everyone had a different view of what they wanted Thomas to be. And there's a lot of contradiction. Henry keeps needing Special Coal and then not needing it. Like there's too much of that in the current timeline. So if we just close this one and start a new one fresh and keep everything consistent, basically, first of all, you can revisit a lot of older ideas, but repackage them so that it's fresh, and then do some new stuff too. It would give you time to, if you wanted to do like a historical series, like where it actually keeps up with time, you could open up new avenues. Like, since we've already introduced Merlin, you could do a spin-off, like where were the experimental engines during the 40s or 50s or whatever. That'd be stuff that I'd explore. I'd also change the target age range, because right now they're still going for 2 to 3 year olds, and I think you could raise it to 10, the maturity level to age 10. Like I'm older, I'm a man-child who still likes Thomas, but like if you aimed the maturity level at age 10, like that's pretty, or just like a general audience where families could, like parents and kids can enjoy elements, which Andrew Brenner brought some of that back to it. But I would broaden the target audience, because if you broaden the appeal, you open the market, more people would be interested maybe in the merch sales as well, and just the content. So that would be, I guess, the marketing changes. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think people like Thomas because of its original formula. It was just, unruly engines, on working on this railway, and just kind of seeing what would happen if, trains could talk. So preserving that original spirit, I think, would be the key. Spent a lot of time on that question, so let's get to the next one. All right, so next group of questions is from Ralph Cameron. So let's see. Question 1, he has, how long does it take to make one episode? So so from start to finish, it usually takes me a month, and it's not that it takes that long, but that's how long it takes me to do all the different things. So filming an episode, if I build one set that services all the locations, I can have it filmed in 1 to 2 hours. So that part doesn't take very long. The long part is the editing. So when I record the narration, that takes 5, maybe 10 minutes. It just depends on how long the episode is. And then I have to move everything to the computer and then edit. Editing is the single worst part of this whole thing, because I have a I have a HP laptop. It's 8 years old. I really need to get a new one. Um, and the program I have the pictures and videos are a lot higher quality than they used to be, so it bogs down my processing power significantly. So most of the time, at least half the time I spend editing is just waiting for my computer to catch up. Um, so I will work on it for like an hour, and I'll get tired of arguing with it. But yeah, I like splicing all the voice, the music, and the sound effects. Usually I'll do like a boring weekend. I'll spend 6 hours on a video and knock it all out at once. And then uploading only takes a couple minutes. But yeah, so it can take, I'd say minimum 2 weeks, but it's taken me a month to make videos if they're 10 minutes long for sure. So question 2, my favorite character. Favorite character has always been James from the start. I don't know why, but I just really empathize with him as a character. I think on a more elementary level, he's always been like the vain uh, character who always thinks too high of himself. I never really thought I had that problem, but I think what I relate to is if you kind of study his character more, where the vanity comes from. I think James is a really deep down inside, he's a very insecure character, and when you think about it, it makes sense. He comes to the island, he's kind of a nobody. He has wooden brakes and whatnot, and he doesn't really start getting full of himself till after he gets painted red, you know. But I think deep down it's kind of a facade because he doesn't. The way I interpret James, and this is just how I interpret James, so don't take this as canon. But he has that superficial persona, but it's because on the inside he's very insecure about himself, which is usually kind of, vain people focus on the superficial because a lot of times they don't want to acknowledge what's deep down inside their character because they're not very proud of it. So, and that's something that I can kind of relate to. So James has always been my favorite character for that. Also, my favorite color is red, so that might be why. But he's my favorite character. I've written more stories for him than anyone in the series. So it's, yeah. So question 3, favorite Thomas merchandise range? So Playrail, Trackmaster, Tomy, all those, it's all the same to me, except for Trackmaster Revolution or whatever. But all that range has always been my favorite. I do think Bachman looks better. It's just prohibitively expensive, or it was. I could afford it now, but I have so much in Playrail that it's easier to just keep going with that. Plus, they have so many more characters than Bachman does. I had take-alongs when I was younger. I always wanted Wooden Railway when I was a kid, but that never happened. So yeah, that's how I ended up with Playrail. I like it though. They're pretty detailed. They're like a happy medium between the toy and kind of show accurate in my mind because they run by themselves. But they also don't break the bank, and hence my series being Playrail. I do have a few take along and wooden items that I use for characters that Playrail doesn't make. So that's all right. Question 4. My favorite season of Thomas and Friends. That's a good one. I'm split between season 4 and season 5. To me, those are my most nostalgic seasons, but they're both different flavors. But I can't say which one. I think I would say season 4. Season 4 was the production quality was much better than the previous 3 seasons, and I think it took a slight dip in season 5. But season 5 was a lot more thrilling. The storylines were a lot more intriguing in season 5. But season 4 wrapped up that era of the show with George Carlin. He was my favorite narrator for sure. And then I love the way they did the Little Engine stories. They were so, I don't know, season 4 is very touching. Just the way they handled the stories, the music. It's just a very peaceful place in my mind. So season 4 of Thomas is probably my favorite. But I like each season for they all have a different spin for the most part. I think season 1 and 2 are probably the same, and then 6 and 7 are hard to tell apart. But the rest of them have their own little vibe to them. But season 4 is my favorite. All right, question 5. Favorite episode I've made. Oh God. That's a good one. Cause before volume 3, Brother Mine was definitely my favorite one that I made. It was about Gordon and Flying Scotsman. It's just like I know that's been done a lot of times, but I never get tired of like the brother dynamic. I have a lot of siblings, a lot of brothers, and I don't know, that dynamic just makes sense to me because I think a thing with boys particularly, siblings or not, is they always feel like they have something to prove and they can't really be honest with each other, even when they want to be. And so that's kind of what I tried to highlight in Brother Mine. And it's definitely like my penultimate. But I think the favorite one that I've made is Whistle Stop, which is the one about James getting his new whistle. And again, like if you asked me this like 6 months ago, it definitely would have been Brother Mine. But I think for the reason I like Whistle Stop better is it's not as choppy as Brother Mine was. Like you can see the difference in my ability to make like a smooth story, in my opinion anyway. Whistle Stop just flowed better. It used my favorite character, but that's not really why, because I think Gordon has so much to explore, and I want to get more into that later. But the point that I ended up making, really by accident, Whistle Stop was supposed to be a comedy. The end part that I ended up writing, where, James is basically having a meltdown because he can't get his whistle back. I don't know, it just really spoke to me, and I don't know if I was writing to myself when I wrote Henry's part, but it just fell together so perfectly. Like the point of it is, like, sometimes something's going to change in your life that may alter the way that you have to live. Like, I know for James it's just a whistle. Those are interchangeable. But for people, I mean, it could be a huge accident that, like, makes you partially disabled. Or, like, I fell down a waterfall a couple years ago, and I'm mostly healed up, but it's kind of changed my walk. And it's really small, but, like, people always think I have a limp, even though I'm healed and I run and everything fine. But I guess I just look different now. So I kind of identified with that. But something I've come to learn was the thing that Henry said, like you can't, instead of running away from those things that you don't like about yourself, you should embrace them because they won't go away, and it's really just making you weaker. So it was just the deepest I've ever gone in a Thomas episode. So I think that's why it's my favorite, because I tried to do like an all at sea type of ending, and I think it ended so nicely. Like, I did not expect it to go that well. So, I'm ranting again, but that was my favorite episode that I've made for sure. All right, let's go to the Sudrian A0. Sudrian A0 voices Percy in the series, and he also voiced the first Mr. Conductor, who's supposed to be Ringo, in the Lady in the Beginning special. So, actual team member here. But let's go ahead and get into the questions. Favorite Thomas and Friends episode? Oh, okay. So for classic, new, and CGI series. Okay, that's good, because it's hard to pick one story. Let me think, though. I think I would do Sleeping Beauty. Yeah, the second piece to Duke's story. I don't know why. The ending was just so touching. The way that he's sleeping in the shed and they come back, and it's just supposed to be funny, but it's just so happy. I love that story. It makes me feel so good inside. I love all the Little Engine stories and all of season 4. Thomas Meets the Queen is my runner-up just because of the ending there, but I'd have to say Sleeping Beauty is my favorite all-around story from the classic series. I could watch it over and over and never get tired of it. But, all right, the new series favorite episode. This one's tough because I don't really I don't have any much affinity for the new series or the CGI series up to season 16. Um, but if for the new series, I think my favorite, I think it would be Emily's Rubbish would be my favorite from the new series. I thought it was a pretty cool. It was a funny episode. Wasn't handled exactly like I would have done, but that's what I would say for the entire new series. So that's not a fair criticism. But I did like the way they. I think my favorite thing was they put more tenderness in it, which they are more cameos. But it was so cool to see Murdoch after years. I thought the storyline was pretty good because Emily wasn't as arrogant as she had been before. She was just kind of legitimately embarrassed. So the character side I liked better from that story. But that is the new series. That's the one I picked. So from the CGI series, there's actually a lot of good stuff from the CGI series, at least from 17 onward. But we're talking episodes. I don't know them as well. I think my favorite one from the CGI series is the Christmas one. Last Train for Christmas. That's it. Yeah. That would be my favorite one from the CGI series. It was just a nice little ensemble story. Like, a lot of the engines are in it. Hero does that cool snow plow charge. That was my favorite part of that episode. And also Connor's in it, too. Like, it's a cool... That's my favorite one from the CGI series. There are a lot of good ones, though. That's just the one that sticks out the most to me. All right, so question 2 from same person. What inspired you to create your series? So a few things. I think the biggest inspiration was Miss Oliver and Blossom's channel. He was the first one that I ever saw on YouTube. So like, it was one day I was on the internet and by accident I found out that Thomas series, like fan series on YouTube was a thing. That was back in 2009. It's a long time ago. But I saw that series and it was so funny. And from the first video, I was like, I want to do this because I had my little collection at the time. And I wanted to kind of do something funny like that with mine. And you'll kind of see how my series evolves from the first episode through volume 2. Like, it changes a lot because kind of what I started with and what I found as I went along changed. So at first I thought I wanted to do like a funny, like TNF style series. And I also watched Train Lover 476, Train Boy 7, those series, and then Diesel D199, but everyone watches him. But like his old stuff was like funny, and it was play rail, so like that was what I tried to model after. But those were the most inspirational ones. And yeah, I just wanted to do it because I used to make films when I was a kid. They were terrible, but I always wanted to make videos. And so I was like, wow, I could actually publish them and people might want to see them. So that was my inspiration. And as it evolved, as I got into it, I started realizing there are some stories that I could really go deep with. And that's kind of a thing with me. I hate that I can't just stay surface level. But like, I have arcs for a lot of the different characters that I want to do. And so it's kind of evolved away from just trying to be like a funny YouTube series to something that's a little bit more meaningful. And I'd like to be like an actual author someday, but right now, like, this just seems to be my outlet right now. I understand how to make these stories in a way that's fresh, but also has some nostalgia for the original show. And that's kind of what I want to do now. So what inspires me now, I guess, is finding people who like that same thing. And I have that with my fan base here, and I'm grateful. But yeah, so that'd be the answer to that question. Number 3, favorite Thomas movie and least favorite Thomas movie, I'm going to assume. So from a nostalgia standpoint, I would say The Magic Road is my favorite movie. I know it's not the best one. I would say the best ones, like if I couldn't pick The Magic Railroad, would be The Adventure Begins, Tale of the Brave. I know some people don't like Tale of the Brave, but that one actually was stronger to me than the rest. But I'm going to say Thomas and the Magic Railroad, and it's probably just because that was the first one I watched. I think it had the best elements, though. Like, I know it was kind of it was cut together, and we don't have the actual product we should have gotten probably. But even if you read the director's cut, like it's not perfect by any means. It's stronger, but it's very cheesy. It's hard to execute this movie well because there's so many moving parts they tried to put in it. There's too much people. There should have been more Thomas. Like the train should have played a bigger part in the movie. But I think the reason I think it's my favorite is it has all the elements to be an epic movie. And also, I just love Diesel 10. It has him. It sends off all the Shining Time characters in a nice way. I think that's kind of underappreciated. Like, Shining Time ran for years. Like, from when the series started in 89. Okay, it's about 12 years by the time the movie came out. So, it's a decade. But think about it. Those people ran that show for 10 years, which is a long time, really, for a kid's show. I mean, talk about 30. Like, the show has insane longevity. As far as people, like, playing as Mr. Conductor and whatnot, like, that's sweet to me. So that's why it's my favorite. It's more for the background more than the movie itself. And P.G. Boomer would have made it fantastic. Like, at least an additional star. Least favorite movie. I don't know. So funny enough, Big World, Big Adventures is not my least favorite movie. It's actually pretty well structured. It does a bunch of things that I hate, but from a movie standpoint, it's not that bad. My least favorite movie, it has to be Misty Island Rescue. And it's not that I didn't like the concept. I actually thought it would be cool to explore a new railway with logging locos. I was willing to entertain the underground tunnel idea, but the rhyming pisses me off so much. Like, I actually watched season 13 yesterday and today, and I just remembered why I hated it so much. Like, it's all so repetitive and mechanical, and Thomas acts so dumb, and that's what kills Misty Island Rescue for me. Like, Day of the Diesels would be the same if it didn't have a bunch of different things going on. But Misty Island Rescue is just single worst. Like, Thomas says the same thing like 50 times. He basically forgets every lesson he's ever learned. There isn't any consequence for anything that he does. And also, I don't know why Misty Island couldn't just have a few people. Like, they didn't do that very well. It's also painfully unrealistic in some parts. But I would have tolerated all that if they just gave it a decent script and didn't try to make it sound like poetry all the time. But yeah, that'd be my least favorite movie, hands down. Let's see. Question 4. Are you looking forward to the 75th anniversary of the franchise? No, not really. That sounds terrible. Like, I am. I'm glad Thomas has lasted 75 years. It also feels like we just had the 70th anniversary, so I'm not really ready for the 75th. But no, I'm not. I don't think where we're at right now is great. Like, Misty Island wasn't the perfect 65th thing, but they didn't even make a big deal about it, so I don't care. All things considered, Misty Island Rescue is preferable to what we're experiencing now. I feel like they're scraping the bottom of the barrel this year. Like, this would be the year to do a full length. Like, I do think there are too many Thomas movies, and that's why the quality's gone down, because they're doing it because they feel like they have to, instead of doing a movie that is actually good and warranted and add something to the franchise. So I understand that they need to take a break, but this would be the year to do a full-length movie. But instead, they're doing, is it 2 full-length specials? Royal Engine and Marvelous Machinery. I'm sort of keeping up, but not, because that's how much I care. And the most promising one to me seemed to be the Royal Engine, but I can't watch the trailer so I look cringing at the animation. And I'm not talking about bouncing. I mean, it's been around for a while. But I'm talking about just the quality is so bad. And they really they could have done so much better with Duchess. I was looking forward to getting a Duchess class in the show, but they butchered it. I mean, they didn't even try. I'm not trying to roast Jamfield or whoever, but they didn't even try. They gave her a the wrong tender. They color the buffer beam black. I've never seen that done ever. It doesn't make any sense. And the color choice, I hope it's temporary. I doubt it, but like, why was it so hard to paint it any other color than gray? Especially if it's an LMS. Like, they're not even trying anymore. That's what I feel like. I feel like they're not trying, and that's why I'm not looking forward to it. I feel like it's gonna be this meh, like they're just kind of pumping it out because I feel like they have to, and it's not like a celebration. So, I mean, I hope I'm proven wrong, but that's the vibe I'm getting. I hope it keeps going in a sense. In another sense, maybe a break is good. But yeah, that's how I feel about it. Number 5, what program did you use to edit your episodes? I use VideoPad Video Editor. I think it's from an Australian company. I don't know how I found it. I think it was free. I've been using it since 2013, so it's been reliable. It's pretty user-friendly. I had to really just play with it for a few weeks before I got the hang of it, and I probably should switch to... I want to switch to Adobe, but I just know this one so well that I've kept it. But that's what I use. VideoPad Video Editor. 4 out of 5 stars, probably.